Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Wilbur Talks FPL, where we talk everything Fantasy Premier League and the Premier League in general. Welcome back after, since I last recorded, about 2 weeks now, as of the international break, and I'm sure, as everyone thinks, it's a bit of a long drag when it comes to international break, so we're happy to be back with our regulars of Charlie and Sam. Have you enjoyed the international break, Charlie?
Yeah, very much so. Not for footballing reasons at all. As we were talking about on stream earlier, I've basically just not watched any football at all. I don't really care for international football, as we've said quite a few times on this pod before. So yeah, it's just been a nice break from football and from Fantasy Premier League as well. But yeah, good to be back. Pleased to be back discussing fantasy.
It always seems so long, doesn't it? The international break. You just can't wait for it to be over. 2 out of 3. We've got one more to go before Christmas, but we'll make it. Have you seen much football over the international break, Sam, or is it very much similar? Just can't wait to be back to Premier League football.
No, very much similar. I caught glimpses of England's win the other night from the outside of the pub. But yeah, I haven't watched, other than that, a single second of international football, and bring back the clubs ASAP.
Very similar to me. I was just saying to Charlie before we started recording that I saw a bit of the England game in the pub. I didn't go out to watch it, but this happened to be on. So that sums up how us three think of the international break. But yeah, good to be back. So we're going to kind of touch on going back like 2 weeks now, or a week and a half, to how we did in the previous game week. I feel like we should start with a star performance. If we come back to you, Sam, and have a look back at your last game week, which would have been game week 7. How did you get on?
Well, you know what they say, boys. Form is temporary, but class is permanent. And the cream will rise. No, it's a very good week through complete luck more than anything else. I actually missed the deadline and went into game week 7 with what on paper should have been an absolute shambles of a team assembled, ready to do some bits and pieces. But actually, it worked out all right through Ayling and Trent both dropping out through injury, which brought in Livramento and someone else as well. I think maybe Tony. But yeah, overall 62 points. Salah got the armband again through missing the deadline. It was going to be Jimenez, so that was quite fortunate. Although Jimenez did return 2 assists, so we still would have got some points there. But yeah, I would like to say a tactical masterclass, but more a fall on the right side of luck, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have taken that score. Very impressive. I remember saying about that Jimenez pick as captain would have worked out pretty well as well.
That genuinely was my intention, by the way. There have been a couple of times where I've sort of been on the fence or whatever. In my head, I was committed to the Jimenez captain pick. I just felt like if you're going to pick him, back him. And also, there's something you said earlier in the pod, Will, earlier in the series of pods I'd never really thought about, which was trying not to, or it might not be the smartest idea, to captain players of a team that you have multiple players of that team, because if they don't perform, you take the absolute pain hit. So selecting Jimenez was actually like a decent differential. If anyone went down that line, then I'd commend them. But yeah, maybe something that I look forward to doing in the future. But overall, a great game week. Probably more luck than skill, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's definitely a few things I think when it comes to captaincy, and that's definitely one of them. Especially like when I've always had like Greenwood and Bruno, I was tending not to captain them. And then the one I found out last season is don't ever have your captain, your vice captain in the same game, because it can always get called off for COVID, and you just don't even get a captain, which is obviously a yikes. I think famously, I think it was the Spurs game, was it, that got called off last season and just absolutely mudded a lot of people. But yeah, we've started with the best, so I think we'll go straight to the worst with mine. So probably the average across all my players was literally 2 points, with Salah, the only one returning, giving me a grand total of 33 points. By far the worst of the season, and thank God Salah actually got a goal contribution because no one else in the team did. Outside of Salah, the highest scoring player was Rafinha with 3. That was pretty much how the game week went. So I'm not going to say much more about that because there's not much else to talk about. How did your week go, Charlie?
Yeah, it was okay. It was another sort of middling middling week. The average, I was just looking now, was 38 and I got 45. So again, can't be too disappointed scoring above the average. Like you say, it's obviously a very low scoring week generally. So it was only a couple of players really that returned for me that kind of helped push me over that line. So I followed through with what I talked about in the last pod of taking Trent out for 1 week, who I took out for Lowton from Burnley just for a 1 week punt, and that sort of paid off in that Lowton got a clean sheet. And then I got a Sanchez clean sheet, and then the Salah return as well. Really, my only returns. Kind of frustratingly, that move was really in with a view to getting Lukaku in, which I'm sure a lot of people did, and to captain him. And obviously he blanked, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, again, like I say, you can't really complain if you're scoring above the average most weeks. So not too disappointed.
Yeah, I was also in that Lukaku boat, so I feel that pain. Let's hope he can benefit over the next few weeks, but we'll come on to him later, and a certain strike partner who did quite well in the last game for them. So if we just touch on some of the fixtures, kind of standout ones that we saw from the week, I think Sam will probably mention it if we go straight to him, but probably the game of the week between Liverpool and Mancity, would you say, Sam?
Yeah, for sure. If not one of the games of the season, really. It was a very, very entertaining game of football, particularly in the second half. It's a really strange one to watch because before the game, I think both teams probably would have taken a point. At half time, we would definitely have taken a point. Man City absolutely battered us for the first half. We were really poor. They were really good. And then second half, something was obviously said in the dressing room because we came out very motivated and put in a decent showing for probably 40 minutes of the 45 in the second half, and across a combined 5-minute period, fell asleep and conceded 2 goals against a very good team. But overall, that 40-minute period in the second half where both teams were at each other was probably the best 40 minutes of the season to watch. And it just kind of feels like both of those teams are, along with Chelsea, I can't say anything other than Chelsea are right in and amongst it, but both of them have just got that sort of killer cutting edge about them that I'm still, even though United have got Ronaldo in that team, I'm still yet to believe that Ronaldo has got the ability to carry United for the entire season to be challengers for the league. But yeah, overall, I think we were watching 2 very good teams in a very high-level game of football, and that's what the Premier League's all about.
Yeah, I think you summed it up very well there. Yeah, that first half you were kind of on the ropes, but then second half, this period you're on top. And I was pretty impressed with how City managed to get back both times as well. I thought they might get a bit overrun, and the fact that it was at Anfield as well. So both sides.
Particularly after Salah's goal, yeah. I felt like that was the one that would have won the game. So I mean, fair play to City for coming back from that. They're a class side, and I still think they're the ones to beat this season.
Yeah, I think definitely with their kind of like KDB and Foden that coming back into the mix as well, it just makes them even more scary to watch. As we can imagine, in the next few game weeks, we've got a few easier fixtures, so you can see a few more like 5-0s at home. Well, you never know, it could be a 0-0 like Southampton, but that's what we love about football, so we'll see. Any results stand out for you, Charlie? Maybe your team, maybe not your team.
Yeah, definitely not my team. I would be surprised if we even talk about that too much, to be honest. Any 0-0 draw is not going to be particularly worthy of talk about. All I can say on that is it's a bit disappointing, really, coming off the back of the good win against Spurs, but possibly what I kind of feared. The players getting up for a big game and then having to go away to a team like Brighton. Is kind of expecting a bit of a drop in levels, which is annoying, and you'd hope that they could have built some consistency. But anyway, moving swiftly on. I don't really want to talk about that too much. Just on that. Obviously, like Sam said, Liverpool Man City was easily the game of the week or the season. I said I didn't watch a minute of international football during the international break. I've watched that Salah goal a good number of times over this break. That was amazing what he did, and completely. I think there can't be many doubters left, but if there are, I think that has to not only just that goal, but also his assist for Mane's goal as well. That has to cement him as by far the best. I don't even know if you could say winger anymore, whether you to just say striker now and just consider him in that category because of how much he does in that position. But yeah, the quality in that game was just amazing to watch. But yeah, I guess the other kind of key game in terms of or most interesting game was probably the Chelsea one, I suppose. Chelsea 3-1. Timo Werner finally getting a bit of own back on everyone. That's probably been making a little bit of fun of how much he's been missing and recently, and some of the opportunities he's missed. He had the joint most shots of any player this weekend with 6, or last weekend, sorry, with 4 of those on target as well, which is always a good sign for a striker that's going to be getting some goals. So yeah, I thought he had a really good game and kind of worked really well with Lukaku in his runs, and I think that really suits Timo Werner's sort of style, kind of running off a bigger striker rather than being the main man himself, like he was quite a lot last season. So going forward, I think they'll be really pleased with that, and the potential for them to work together, I think, opens up a lot of opportunities for them going forwards. And yeah, I guess that's probably the main ones that I thought about. Possibly the other one, maybe worth mentioning, the Wolves game, just because of obviously that instant impact for Hwang Hee-chan. I thought his goals, he took them so clinically, and they are exactly what effectively, because he basically came in for Traore and came into Traore's position, and has basically offered exactly what Traore is not, and that's the clinical finishes that have been lacking up until now. And yeah, he looks really great in that position. I think the manager made a lot of good comments after the game about him as well. So yeah, I think that's when we get to some of our sort of future plans and fantasy a bit later. He's potentially one that could be in our minds because of the great price he's at.
Definitely one for discussion when we get later on in the pod. Can't complain at that price, really, can you? And like you said, he's a Adama of Traore that can finish, as you've found out with Adama. I just wanted to touch on the Sunday games as well, because the Sunday games were kind of where all the goals were. I just kind of wanted to get, I think there's like 2 games in particular I'm looking at, Palace and Leicester. I just kind of wanted to get your guys' takes on those 2 teams, what you're kind of thinking of them so far this season, because I think Leicester were really lucky to get away with that in that game. Somehow we're 2-0 up when they didn't deserve to be. And Palace seemed to be on the up while Leicester seemed to be on the down at the minute. But Sam, what do you make of these 2 teams so far this season, Palace and Leicester?
Yeah, well, I've previously on this pod tarnished Palace as relegation fodder. And it's interesting, really, because they've probably been the team that have surprised me the most over the last 2 game weeks, just from the stark difference from the first couple of game weeks. And yeah, like you said, I actually watched the game and felt like they were criminally unlucky to be 2-0 down, and then probably criminally unlucky not to win the game. But I think there's something about them. They had a little bit more fight, and they've definitely got a little bit more setup. So maybe I was just jumping the gun a little bit early. I still think they're going to be in and amongst that scrap at the end, but maybe not quite as condemned as I first had them. And I think that's probably fair play to Palace. Got to say, battling hard to get points, and I think that was the general feel of the whole game week, was that there was some really like gritty performances. A lot of teams just fighting to the absolute death for every single point, right to the last game, and that's what makes the league so competitive. Leicester haven't really hit top form this season, I think it's fair to say. I think we've all been a little bit underwhelmed by Leicester, but I think we probably had really high expectations of them over the way they've performed over the last couple of years. And Brendan Rodgers has a track record of a couple of years in just sort of starting seasons a little bit slower than he might have done in previous years. So we'll see what happens with Leicester. Jury's out on them a little bit still. I don't really want to pass comment too quickly like I did on Palace with Leicester, but I think they will find a way to turn it around and pick some points up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think there could be a few value picks from Palace that we'll probably talk about later on as well, especially in that midfield area if you're looking for some value, whether it be on a wildcard or elsewhere. And then the other fixture I just wanted to touch on lastly was West Ham Brentford. I think it's just how Brentford are doing well, obviously they're doing quite well so far this season, and you particularly wouldn't expect them to go away to West Ham. Obviously, West Ham haven't been great, but I think the first 3 or 4 game weeks were just kind of running mauling teams with their attacking intent, but then they've kind of fell away in the last few games. So it's kind of a result that you could see happening, but you won't fully expect with West Ham's experience. What would you say about those two sides, Charlie, so far this season?
Well, yeah. So obviously West Ham have done generally quite well. I think their issue at the moment, and we've said it a few times, I think, has been their defence mainly. Obviously, we know the quality that they've got with Antonio and Benrahma, and the likes of Bowen scored in that game, and they've got a few good options around there, and it just feels a little bit stale in the defence. Actually, kind of what I'd say about Leicester as well. Although Leicester, I think, is mainly a little bit more because of a change of obviously Fofana getting injured and at the beginning of the season, and that kind of maybe scarpered some of their plans. But yeah, it just feels like West Ham's defence, they just need someone a bit more commanding, someone a bit more, they've got the likes of Cresswell, who's great going forwards, but maybe a bit suspect going back. Soufal's not been performing up to what we saw last season. And again, even at his best last season, that was mostly from attacking threat rather than defensively. So I think that's just the main area that they need to sort out. They've got a great goalkeeper in Fabianski. We know how good he can be, particularly at shot stopping and making saves. So yeah, I think it's just kind of in that central area that they're kind of struggling a little bit. I think with Brentford, yeah, they've been doing great. I don't think there's any team really that is going to go playing against Brentford that will think it's going to be an easy game. They know that they're really going to come to firstly attack you, but actually the defensive stats have been pretty good as well. Which, considering the style of football that they play, that's actually quite surprising that they've been able to be quite solid. And yeah, I think my main takeaways from Brentford, mostly with my fantasy head on, is in Mbeumo and what he offers going forwards. Priced as, I think he's a 5.5 midfielder. He's basically playing as a second striker, running in behind, kind of like I talked about with Werner and Lukaku earlier. You've got Tony and Mbeumo doing the same thing for Brentford. So you've got Tony kind of taking the ball and knocking it on for Mbeumo running in behind. So yeah, he's definitely a major one to consider for, he can even be your sort of rotation and 5th midfielder option when needed, because he just seems like such good value, as long as you can kind of pick the right games for them.
Yeah, I think definitely between Brentford and West Ham at the minute, Brentford are getting the balance a lot more like kind of on it, because I feel like West Ham have kind of gone for those 4 creative players up front, and they're not being able to track back and be a solid defensively, while Brentford have kind of got the whole team working as one so far. So it can be, well, it depends how. I feel like West Ham as fans kind of demand that kind of football, but it depends. They need that defensive kind of solidarity as they had more of last season, but one to look out for the rest of the season. But yeah, I think not as slightly similar to how Leeds played last season. Brentford are going on that kind of run, and kind of as we predicted at the start of the season, they would do a lot better than the other 2 promoted sides who aren't doing very well at all. Right, I think that's kind of sums up the last game week. So we're going to do the quiz a bit earlier, because I feel like the second half of the pod where we kind of look forward is going to be a lot longer. So I hope you've got your minds ready for some quizzing.
Always ready.
Born ready.
Born for it, yeah.
And just as that, Sambo has given us a score update of 1-1 in the England game, as you couldn't, that England are playing at the same time as recording today. Right. So we've got 3 rounds, all slightly different.
3 rounds.
Yeah.
There's got to be a winner.
There has to be, surely. So the first round...
Head up a draws.
Yeah. The first round, because we're on an international break, is more around the last major international tournament we've had. So there was a team in the tournament for Euro 2020, or which was actually didn't take part in 2020, but you get what I mean. So there's a team of 11 players that are in team in the tournament, and you're going to take it in turns to name players that were in that team of the tournament. there's 11. So to make it fair, I'm going to give you the goalkeeper. So basically, you get 5 guesses each. So in goal in the team in the tournament was Donnarumma, not surprisingly. Do you want me to give you the formation it's set up in, or do you think that's too much of a hint?
Don't know.
Let's just roll.
Go for it. So
yeah, go
on. You're drawing 3-3, so I've got no kind of gauge to who wants to go first. Any takers?
I don't mind. I think I went first last time, so if you want to go first, Sam, this time.
And then you
Okay,
both
that's
get
good.
5 guesses. If you get one wrong, you still get your other guesses. So don't worry about going for a punt earlier on.
Okay, fine. Right, let's start with what I assume will be one of the first choice centre backs in the team, Leonardo Bonucci.
That is correct.
Well, probably the most talked about player, Jorginho.
That is also correct.
Let's go for Sterling.
Correct.
I'm going to continue on my Italian theme here. Chiesa.
Correct.
Let's go safe. Lukaku.
Correct. I'm not sure I'd call that safe. I think that striker position you could have a debate about, but still correct.
There's a few, but he scored quite a few early on, didn't he? I think.
Yeah, he wasn't top goal scorer though.
Yeah. I am going to go with Harry Maguire.
Correct. So you've both got 3 each so far. So 4 more players.
Okay. Let's go Kyle Walker.
Correct.
Down to the bare bones now.
I think you'll probably kind of been working out a formation in your head at this point because you'll know certain players that you have.
Well, yeah. So I'm assuming unless they did a weird back 3 like they sometimes do for team of the year stuff. I'm assuming it's a back 4. So that leaves us with a left back, who the only one that I can think of having a really good tournament. Not that I played it, but lots of people talked about him in Fantasy Euro. Was Spinazzola, so I'm going to go with him.
Correct.
Yeah. Great shout. Very good. Very good.
I'm surprised.
I have
surprised
one more
didn't
name.
get that, to be fair. At the left back.
I have one more name. I don't know the last man, but I'm pretty sure this guy got in, and that is the only Spaniard in there, Pedri.
That's correct. 5 out of 5 for Sam. 1 name left.
I have no idea.
Good luck. I think you left the worst 2 till last, to be fair.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't even think of an educated guess of who it could be.
Well, if you kind of think of what kind of formation it's in, and then it might give you a hint. At
well,
least
yeah,
position.
I'm assuming it's a midfielder, but as to who actually did anything of note, I'm gonna guess at let's just go with Calvin Phillips. I have no idea.
No. Do you want to have another guess, Sam?
I would have guessed. I was going to guess Calvin Phillips as well. To be fair, that's. But Declan Rice.
No, it's Højbjerg. For
Højbjerg.
He got quite a
Never
few.
have got that.
He got quite a
Really?
few assists, surprisingly.
I would never have got Højbjerg.
I would have never got it, to be fair. But he was quite highly scored in Euro Fantasy because he literally would give it to like an attacking midfielder. They'd run and have a shot and score, and he'd just get an assist for it. It's very similar to how like Alan has been doing for Everton. He just gives it to someone and they run with it. So yeah. So 5 points to Sam and 4 to Charlie after that round, but especially that last one. That last one was very hard. Right, so round 2. So as Charlie's behind, you're both going to get one question, very similar to how it worked last pod. I'm going to get Charlie to choose his team first. So you've got a choice, Charlie, between Chelsea or Man City.
Can I know the subject?
Nope.
Okay. Well, given the 2 teams, that's probably an indicator. I'm going to go with Chelsea.
Okay. So similar to how we did it last time, I'm looking at the defence and goalkeeper or goalkeepers for Chelsea and Man City. You need to give me the top 5 scoring defenders or goalkeepers for that team so far this season. If you give me in the correct order, you get a bonus point. So you've gone for Chelsea. So you can start when you want.
Is this for the overall score in FPL?
Overall score, yeah.
Okay, fine.
And just the goalkeeper and defenders?
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're ignoring midfielders and strikers. So because I think a big question that we're probably going to be talking about in the second half of the pod is what defence to go for. I thought it kind of related in for this one.
Yeah.
So if you start whenever you want, but if you give me the first name you give me should be the highest point scoring player. And just within your lists that you both got, 2 of them, like within the 10 players, 2 of them have got the same point. So if you get them whatever way around you get them, I'll give you like the bonus point if you get those 2 the wrong way around, because you can't get them the wrong way around.
So I'm going first.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Who did I pick again? Chelsea.
Yeah, good start.
Okay. Good start. Yeah. Top scorer is Alonso for sure.
He's in the top 5, yeah.
Next one's probably a bit difficult. I'd probably guess because of how he must have played every game and he's picked up a few assists, I'm going to go Azpilicueta.
He's in the top 5.
Next, I'm going to guess Rudiger.
He's in the top 5.
I would assume, I'm not guessing this yet, but I assume Mendy's got to be one of the top 5, but he'd probably be, would he be last? I don't know, because he doesn't really make saves. I'm just going to go Mendy because I'm pretty sure he'll be in there.
Do you want me to take him as 4th or 5th? Yeah, bothered. Do you back?
Sorry.
If you want to submit them in a different order, but
no, it's fine. I'll take him next as 4th, just because I'm more sure of him.
Yeah, Mendy's in the top 5.
Who the last one is interesting. It's going to be one of. I'm not sure if James has played enough because he's had a couple of games. Obviously, had injury. Thiago Silva, maybe. Chalobah scored a couple, but I don't think he started enough. I'm just going to go Thiago Silva.
Incorrect. It was Chalobah.
Oh, it was Chalobah. I wasn't sure if he'd started enough to.
Yeah, and Chalobah was 4th with more points than Mendy. The top 3 you got in the right order, but Asby and Rudiger had the same amount of points, so that was the one that was stuck on. So that's 4 out of a possible 6 you could have got there. I should have kind of told you the subject. It might have put you a bit off Chelsea because there's that kind of indecision, but can't be too biased. So over to Sam. Same for you with Man City. If you start with the highest scoring and work your way down.
Yeah, I was just going to say before we get started, I think if we had known the subject, then it would have been a different selection made.
I was
because
thinking you were going to do
pretty
like Champions League final starting team or something.
Yeah.
I just thought Chelsea would be more easy to pick. But
There's pretty much only 5 for City. I guess it's just in what order they are. Cancelo has to be top. So we'll go Cancelo
He's
first.
in the 5, yeah.
I would imagine. I can't remember if Diaz has scored for City. I know he's had a couple of yellow cards. I'm going to go Ederson second,
He's in the
Diaz
top 5.
third,
He's in the top 5.
and then I think there are a couple of games where Walker didn't play and Cancelo played right back. And then Mendy played the first game of the season at left back, although he's definitely not in the points contention anymore. Zinchenko played once or twice, I think. Okay, I'm going to go. So Cancelo, Ederson, Diaz, Laporte, Walker.
You get 5 points because you got all of them right. You got Edison and Diaz the wrong way around. So very close.
Still thing.
I think
I couldn't remember if Diaz had scored or not.
I think he got an assist for Laporte, I think. Something along those lines.
Maybe.
Yeah, so Cancelo had 44, Diaz had 39, Edison 35, Laporte 31, Walker 27. So still 5 points. So you've got 10 and Charlie's got 8.
Fuming.
But I would debate this. I've gone a bit different on this final round, and there's a lot of points on offer. So we're kind of going to play guess the player. So you can. So I'm going to have to explain the format. So I'm going to tell you the points from the last 3 games that this player has scored, like overall points, like FPL points, not like BPS or anything. So that's going to be your first clue. I will give you that first clue. You're going to take it in turns. That person will get a guess. If you, this will just like you can guess whatever player you want there. If you get that wrong, well, if you get that right, you'll get 3 points. If you get it wrong, I'll give you another clue. If you get it right after that clue, you'll get 2 points. If you don't get it right, you'll get another clue, and you've got a chance to get 1 point. So so you've both got 5 each. So there is a maximum of 15 points you can get here, or you could get none. So it can change it. I think as we go through it, I'll keep explaining it so it makes sense.
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I do.
I'll basically giving you clues towards the player, hoping that you'll get at least 1 point by the end of it. That makes sense. Right.
Fine.
I'll start with Charlie again because you're still behind. So, yeah, you might want a bit of paper or something for this to be fair to remember these things. So, I'm going to give you the points they've scored in the last 3 game weeks. So this is game week 5, 6, and 7. So in game week 5, this player scored 3 points. In game week 6, they scored 12 points. And in game week 7, they scored 3 points. So that's your first clue. You can have a guess after that clue. If you get it right, you'll get 3 points. If not, you'll get another clue.
3, 12, 3. So that, to me, that implies it's a midfielder because of the 3s. That must be a 2 points plus clean sheet. But they're quite sporadic with 3, 12, 3. Who's had clean sheets in some of those games?
It's going to be very tactical, this, because it's like you can either like punt on the first one to try to get 3 points, or if you're in Charlie's position, take your time and try to think it through and guarantee a 3 or 2.
This is tough. Well, actually, 3, 12, 3. The only team I can think of that would have had those clean sheets would have been Arsenal. 3, 12, 3. So that's going to be an Arsenal midfielder. So it's going to be one of Saka or Smith Rowe. Oh, I think Saka got an assist in the first of those 3 games, so I'm going to go with Smith Rowe.
Maybe pulled that one from. That's right.
Well, I mean, it is Arsenal, so that does help. I've got better knowledge of those games.
That's class. That is class.
good logic,
I'm going to
that.
come unstuck here.
I did take my time to work that out, though.
That was
And
good
it probably needs to be a
working
bit
out.
quicker. Maybe a buzzer or something.
But I think it's interesting to give you the time to think about it. So that was good how you worked it out. Right, so over to you, Sam. So your first player. Their points in game week 5 was 8 points. Their points in game week 6 was 2 points. Their points in game week 7 was 7 points.
Okay. Sorry, just give those numbers again. What was the first one? Something 2, then 7.
It was 8 to 7.
8 to 7.
Yeah, so that's going game weeks 5 to 6, like through all those game weeks.
I mean, I haven't got an absolute clue. Right. So based on Charlie's quite good logic there, I would guess this isn't a midfielder, because how would a midfielder get 7 or 8 points if they got a clean sheet? Maybe if they got an assist and a clean sheet, but then they probably get a bonus. I don't know. Maybe they got 3 bonus points. I'm thinking way too much into this. His logic's so good. I don't know.
Well, yeah, 3 points is more of a giveaway than anything else. So
Okay. Not a clue. I don't know.
I guess at this point, you'll get another clue anyway.
Fine. Well, someone I know who got 7 points this last week was Werner, so we'll go Werner.
That's incorrect. So
Okay,
your
fine.
second clue, I'm going to tell you the team they played in those fixtures to get those points.
Okay.
So to get the 8 points, this player was playing against Crystal Palace. To get the 2 points, this player was playing against Brentford. And to get the 7 points, this player was playing against Mancity.
Right. That makes it interesting. Okay, so in which case, it's probably between 2 or 3. So it's obviously a Liverpool player. It's not Salah and it's not Jota. Could be Mane. It could be... The 2 points was the middle one, right? So
Yeah.
the 2 points was the Brentford fixture.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so it can't be... Who else scored against Brentford? Curtis Jones. Can't be him. Can't be Henderson because he didn't get 7 points against City. All right, let's go Mane. Sadio Mane.
Yeah, that's correct.
Nice.
Yeah, so he got his 8 points because 2 points for playing, 1 for the clean sheet, and 5 for the goal against Palace. And then
Fine.
2 for just playing against Brentford, and then Man City 2 for playing, and then 5 for the goal.
Okay, that's good. I'm pleased to get that.
Get some points on the board.
That is so hard, man. How on earth do you work Smith Rowe there? That's unreal.
well,
Fair
yeah,
play.
like I said,
Fair
the
play.
three is more of a giveaway than anything else.
Mate, yeah, no, that's off. That's
Watch out for
very,
them,
very
man.
impressive. Very impressive.
Right, back to Charlie then. So the points this player has got: game week 5, they got 10 points. Game week 6, they got 1. Game week 7, they got 0.
Ooh. That's a tough one.
Yeah, they do get slightly harder every time. Because look on the last ones.
So 0 implies they either didn't play, or maybe they're a defender and they conceded. The fact they got a 1 point, again, either limited time or got a yellow card, maybe. And then a 10 as well. In my mind, that means it's I think that sounds more like a defender than anything else, but I'm not 100% sure on that. 0 and 1 is a tough number to go by. I'm going to go.
Sounds like a damn Traore if you could score, wouldn't it, really?
Not with a 10 in there, though, does it?
Exactly, you could score.
Who would have got a 10? Can't really remember when he didn't play, but I'm just going to guess at Reece James. I've no idea. I can't remember.
That's incorrect. So I'm going to give you who they played against in those fixtures. So when they scored 10 points, they played Spurs. When they got 1 point, they played Man City. When they got 0 points, they played Southampton.
Okay, actually, I was right with the club then, because that's Chelsea. If they just played Southampton, I'm impressed that I actually got it right. Is there a half point for that or anything? No,
No, it doesn't work like that.
10-1-0. So and they won 3-1. So it must have been a player that he got 0 points in a game where they won 3-1. So it implies they didn't play. Which Chelsea player didn't play against Southampton? I don't know. I'm all over the place now.
It's funny, you were so close, but then so far at the same time.
Is that a hint?
It's not a hint.
Okay. I'm going to go for 10-1-0. Yeah, I'm going to stick to my logic that it's a defender, I think. I'm going to guess at Thiago Silva.
That's incorrect. And the third clue you kind of solved for yourself. So the third clue is a defender, yeah. So you've already named two, to be fair.
Which defender? Oh, no, it must be... Surely it's Alonso, because Chilwell came in, so it must be Alonso.
Yeah, it is Alonso.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
progressively getting through all their defence.
Yeah, so against Spurs he got 10 points because he got a clean sheet, an assist, and 1 bonus point. And then Man City he played but got a yellow card, and then he didn't play against Southampton.
Yeah, makes sense.
You went round the whole defence. You got there.
Yeah, I'm surprised they got in the ballpark with James. To be honest, that was a complete guess.
Yeah. All right, so back to Sam. So
here we go.
Game week 5, they got 1 point. Game week 6, they got 3 points. And game week 7, they got 8 points.
What was the game week 5? Sorry.
1 point.
1 point, 3 points, 8 points.
Yeah.
Interesting. So 1 point is probably going to be maybe like a substitute appearance. Not that this is filtering down anything at all, because I'm still going to be plucking a name out of thin air, but I'm just trying to set myself up for the next clue, build myself some confidence. 3 points, could well be a midfielder. Could well be. Could be a bonus in there somewhere, maybe. I have absolutely no idea. 8 points from the last game week. I don't even know who got 8 points. Let's go for... I can't even educated guess. Foden? I don't know.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
All right, so the teams that they played in each fixture. So to get the 1 point, they played Southampton. For the 3 points, they played Chelsea. For the 8 points, they played Liverpool.
Oh my god! So it was a City player.
How have we both done that? Guess the right team.
It's funny though, because when I've been doing it, I've been trying to pick out certain trends you get in FPL, like the Chelsea defender rotation and the Man City something rotation. I just gave it away a bit there, but I gave away my next clue there.
Well, I mean, by logic, the only player that could have scored 8 points for City in that game is De Bruyne, I think. Maybe. Well, if it's not Foden, it has to be De Bruyne.
Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, going for De Bruyne, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I might have slightly gave it away, but like...
Imagine if we'd just gone bam, De Bruyne on the 3-pointer. Oh, that would have been...
Yeah.
That would have been tasty.
Yeah, well, technically, if someone got 2 assists, they could have, but I don't know who assisted the 2 goals in that game.
Man, that was so lucky.
You both done well to actually get the team on the first
one. The second clue is really quite a jump. At first, I was like, that's not going to help at all, but it does help quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, as long as you can work out who played each other in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Right, so back to Charlie. Would you like a score update?
I think we're level, aren't we?
Or
something. In terms of this round, but overall, he's...
Yeah, I was going to say, you're level in this round, but you're still behind by 2.
Yeah, 2, yeah.
Because of previously. Right. So your next player, Charlie, is game week 5, they scored 8 points. Game week 6, they scored 8 points. Game week 7, they scored 2 points.
Okay. 8-8-2.
Sounds like a good formation, that.
So that could be a striker with 2 bonus, but in 2 progressive weeks. I don't know if that's really possible. Midfielder 5, 6, 7. That'd be midfielder with 1 bonus. That's tough. 8 in consecutive weeks. Or in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just doing all the maths in my head now. That's tough. 8-8-2. Yeah, that's throwing me. I'm not even sure what position I would think that is. So it's going to be someone that's blanked in the last week but scored before. Would it? Trying to think along a theme here. But I think he would have scored more on the first week. But I'm going to throw out Ismail Assar.
No, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Right, so the fixtures. So to get 8 points, they played Leeds. To get 8 points, they played Watford. And to get 2 points, they played Wolves.
So they played Wolves, which was Newcastle. So blanked against Wolves. I can't even remember who scored for Newcastle in that game, but it wasn't anyone significant, fancy-wise. But scored in the previous 2. So the only person there's no one that scores for Newcastle really, other than St Maximin now. So it must be St Maximin.
It is St Maximin. He didn't actually score in the Watford game. He got an assist and got 3
returns
bonus.
Anyway.
Yeah. So he scored 1 against Leeds, got 2 bonus points. Assisted against Watford, got 3 bonus points, and then blanked against Wolves.
Fair enough.
Nicely worked out, though. Still good.
Yeah, it's good that second clue, I think. Gives you something to go on.
Newcastle is a bit of a giveaway because they've not really got many good point scorers.
Yeah. All right, back to Sam. So, game week 5, they scored 7 points. Game week 6, they scored 9 points. And game week 7, they scored 1 point.
Bloody hell. Okay. 7-9-1, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to think outside the box a little bit here as to which clubs have been represented so far, which haven't.
Can't use that logic.
I have no idea. Wan-Bissaka?
It's not Wan-Bissaka. Right, so the fixtures for the points. So for the 7 points, they played Leicester. For the 9 points, they played Crystal Palace. And for the 1 point, they played Arsenal.
There's a Brighton player. That's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Well, I guess it kind of rules out a defender because unless they came on as a substitute, they probably would have got clean sheet points against Arsenal. So I guess we're looking at midfielders or forwards. You said it was 9-7-1.
7-9-1.
7-9-1, sorry.
Yeah, 7 against
Okay,
Leicester,
so
9 against Palace.
yeah, fine. Okay, Brighton players. Let's go for Mope.
That's correct.
Nice.
Yeah, so against Leicester, he got 7. He got a goal with a bonus point. And then against Palace, he got a goal with 3 bonus points. And then against Arsenal, he played but got a yellow card. So he got 1 point.
Nice. That wasn't as bad as I was fearing it was going to be, actually, that one. It was the second one that got lucky with the Foden to KDB pluck.
Yeah, I've got 2 each more for you, but I'm worried it's taking quite a while. Do you want me to do the other 2? Or I'm sure Charlie's still behind by 2 points. I'm sure he'll say yes.
I don't mind.
I don't mind, whatever, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you enjoy it, I'll do the other 2 because I've got them prepared
Yeah.
anyway.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Well, then, if you've prepared them, we'll get
Yeah.
them.
Right, so that's Charlie again. So this player in game week 5 scored 8 points. In game week 6, they scored 2 points. In game week 7, they scored 8 points.
8-2-8. Let's think. 8-2-8. 3, 6, 7, 8. So maybe that could be. Yeah, the first one's almost impossible. I can't remember what he did in the middle game week, but I know Sir Jamie Vardy scored on either side, so I'm going to go with him.
Not bad enough.
Oh, okay.
Right, so to score the 8 points, this player was playing against Wolves. To get the 2 points, this player was playing against Liverpool. And to get the other 8 points, they were playing against West Ham.
So that makes it playing against West Ham was Brentford. So I assume then that's going to be. And Mbeumo, would it be? 8-2-8. Would anyone else have scored in that same period, or would it be Tony maybe? I don't know if he's even scored enough to. I should know this because I've been looking at Mbeumo for 2 weeks, but I just can't remember if he definitely scored the last game. So yeah, I'm going to go Mbeumo.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he scored in both fixtures, the first and the last one.
Yeah, and I don't think Tony scored in the last one, did he? So yeah, he couldn't.
No, I think it was that the other winger who always comes off the bench. Right, so another 2 points. So you're currently level, but Sam's got an extra question left. Right, so back to Sam. So Sam's player in game week 5, they scored 15 points. In game week 6, they scored 9 points. In game week 7, they scored 1 point.
Oh, wow.
Bit of a range.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. They scored 15, then 9, then 1.
Yeah.
Probably going to be someone new. I don't even know. 15, 9, 1. That is a fall from grace. Well, I wonder if we've already had this person guessed, actually. I wonder if we haven't. Cristiano Ronaldo?
That's incorrect. Right.
Snap.
So 15 points, this player was playing against Norwich. 9 points, this player was playing against Newcastle. And 1 point, this player was playing against Leeds.
Oh, I'm so annoyed with myself, man. So annoyed. Why did I change to Ronaldo at the last? I feel like, is it Ismail Assar?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so annoying. I was like, oh,
I had to
it
put
can't
that
be
in there
so
to just like
too
keep
obvious.
stabbing it into you guys how well Sarr did in that run.
Mate, that is so
And if you
I
guess
hate
Sarr,
Ronaldo even more now.
yeah, if you guess Sarr, you couldn't have lost. So it gives Charlie a slight chance still.
All right.
Right.
If I lose from now, my hatred for Ronaldo peaks.
Well, Charlie has to get this on the first guess and hope you don't get yours at all.
All right.
Feels unlikely. I don't think we've gone to their third clue, have we? Or maybe just once.
We had it once.
Yeah.
You went to it once. It was on the Chelsea defenders.
Oh yeah, Chelsea. Yeah.
Right. So back to Charlie. So this player in game week 5 scored 5 points. In game week 6 scored 2 points. And in game week 7 scored 4 points.
What?
That's the fight against all your logic.
I'm not even sure who would get those kinds of points. 4 is a very weird one to pick up. What would that be? I don't even know. 3, so 5 could be an assist and nothing else, so just the 2 points, so 5. 4 points would be an assist and a yellow card, maybe? Oh dear. 5-2-4, 5-2-4. I mean, this is impossible for me to guess this on a first go.
I'm going to say these are like the 2 hardest ones that are left.
2-4.
If either of you get 3 points on these, I'd be highly impressed.
I think I could take all day and still not get this one. Yeah, I'm just going to have to make a random guess at someone. I'm not even sure what position. 5-2-4. Well, maybe a 4 could be a goalkeeper potentially with 6 saves on. He would have made a lot of saves to at least give some kind of outside shout at being right. I'm not even sure what keepers have made a lot of saves recently. I'm going to go with Raya, the Brentford goalkeeper. No idea, honestly.
Yeah, that's incorrect. So to get 5 points, this player played against Mancity. To get 2 points, this player played against Wolves. To get 4 points, this player played against Chelsea.
Against Chelsea, so that makes it a Southampton player. So 5-2-4. Well, if I'm going to follow my other logic, it would make it McCarthy. But would he have done that? Or the other option? Wait a minute, it was 3. The Chelsea game was 3-1, so they would have lost 1 point if it was defender or goalkeeper. So, What was the first game they played? Sorry, who was it against?
Mancity.
See if I can even remember what the score in that game was. Oh no, that was the 0-0, wasn't it? Because it was Mancity only had 1 shot, which means it's got to be a goalkeeper or defender. 5 points implies yellow card, which I don't think would have been the goalkeeper. And the only other, surely the reason for you including this is an FPL talking point would be Livramento, so I'm going to have to go him.
Yeah, it is Livramento.
Nicely done.
Got no
Nicely
talking
done.
point.
I knew it was Livramento as soon as you read the fixtures because I've got him in the team and he got the 4 last week.
Yeah, because he got an assist for the. Was it
Yeah,
was
he
it a
did.
penalty?
I think he got
Oh, no, was
a
it
yellow
pass?
card and an assist. I think.
No, because he conceded 3 goals, so they got a
Oh,
negative
right.
-1
Yeah,
for
fine.
conceding.
Yeah.
In that Man City game, they got a 5 because he got a yellow card.
Yeah.
Right, so the scores are level, so Sam, you just need to get this within your 3 guesses to win. But I'd argue this is the hardest one of the whole
Okay.
thing.
Come on then. Bring it on.
Right, so game week 5, this player got 15 points. In game week 6, they got 5 points. And in game week 7, they got 1 point. Another 4.
15, 5, and 1.
Yeah, another 4 from Grace.
That, I mean, yeah. $15, 5, and... Interesting. Trying to think back to game week 5 if there was any crazy performances, but I don't think there were. 15, 5, 1. I have absolutely no idea. Game week 5. So that was game week 5 was the same week that we've just done game week 7, haven't we? Yeah, we must have done.
Yeah.
Game week 5 would have been the same week. So it wouldn't have been Liverpool City, it wouldn't have been Liverpool Brentford, Liverpool Palace. So it would have been the same week as Liverpool Palace. But I doubt it would be a Liverpool player. And I can't really think of too many other games that week other than Man United. But that was when they came back from, well, when Noble missed that penalty.
Great game, that. What was that?
Great game. Fantastic watch, I must say. I really don't know. Let's go Ronaldo again. I know it's not.
Not again.
Yeah.
It's not Ronaldo. I'm glad you only need 1 point. I think it might take you to that one if you're going to get this one.
Okay. All right, fine.
Right, so when they scored 15 points, they were playing against Everton. When they scored 5 points, they were playing against Man United. And when they scored 1 point, they were playing against Spurs.
Okay. So 15 points against Everton.
Just to throw this in the mix, I think I know who this is.
Well, I'm trying to think. 15 points. That has to be a goal in there. Didn't watch the game though, so it's just going to be. I can't even remember who that was. Who was it they played last week? Sorry.
Spurs.
Oh right, I was thinking of the wrong club. That's what it's Villa.
I'm going to say.
I was about to. I don't know why my head was on Burnley. I was like, Burnley players scoring 15 points. Right, so it's Villa. Okay, fine. That narrows the field a little bit. Jeez, God. Spurs, they got 1 point. You say?
Yeah.
And that result was 2-1. I can't remember who scored. Danny Ings.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Right, so your final clue, and you need this point to win.
Yeah.
So the player is a defender.
The player is a defender.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. Oh, no. Pain. Right, okay. Villa defenders. Well, there's Mings. There's the other lad. English lad's at Konsa. I don't even know if he's been playing. Matty Cash has been playing. I know he got an assist 1 week, I think. Maybe it was a goal, I don't know. Can't think. I know Mings had an absolute howler against Chelsea. Probably wasn't him. Oh yeah. This is tough. I feel like it's going to be a fullback. Like, if it's going to be a defender that scored that many, it's going to be a fullback. I can't even think who plays left back for Villa.
Yeah, I feel like this is slightly crueler than the Livramento one because we're more likely to have Livramento than Aston Villa defender.
Yeah, I literally think the only Villa player I've considered this year has been Ings. Okay, well, seeing as it's a defender, I am going to guess a fullback. And seeing as I don't know the left back, I'm going to have to go with the right back. So I'm going to go for Matty Cash.
I'd like to say it was brilliant logic, but Cash is the correct answer.
Oh, thank God.
He scored a great goal in that Everton game.
Did he?
Yeah, he kind of...
I must have completely missed the game because I can't remember. I don't know why. I was thinking Burnley just popped into my head. I was like, oh my God, that would have been bad if I'd have guessed like Chris Wood or something.
Yeah, because I think he got down the outside and then cut back on his left foot and smashed it in the top corner. It was a good finish for a right-footed fullback. Wow. Yeah, so he got 15 points against Everton, which was a goal, clean sheet, and then 3 bonus points. He got 5 against Man United, except a clean sheet, but he got a yellow card. And then he played against Spurs, but they conceded twice, so he got 1 point.
I think that win was more by luck than judgment, like the FPL result.
He got there in the end, so Sam wins by 1 point, all on that Cash one at the end. But yeah, so you go 4-3 up.
Well, that's...
I thought that one was a bit different, and it got your brains working.
That one feels like you've had to work for that one. Like, feels hard.
Lie down now.
I'm tired. Yeah.
I know it shouldn't have been. I'll try and make it shorter if we do it in that format again because it went on for ages, that one. But at least we enjoyed it. Right, we better move on to actually talking about game week 8 then, haven't we? So I think I'm going to ask you both the question before we get into it, so everyone understands what position we're in. So we'll start with Charlie, who I know where he is. So are you on the wildcard this week, Charlie, or are you going to tell us your situation?
Yeah, I am indeed on a wildcard. Click the button. I think whenever the deadline was, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It was. I think, like I said on the last pod, it was kind of a pre-planned move. If I was going to take Trent out, then I'd be triggering the wildcard to get him back in and change the squad. And so that's ultimately what I decided to do.
Good stuff. So I'm expecting a lot of interest from you on the discussions going forward. Sam, what's your current situation in terms of wildcard? Is it going to be pushed, not being pushed, or on the fence?
Well, it's a very interesting one because, again, by luck, don't be listening to my advice if you want solid FPL advice, guys. Definitely get it by luck. It's actually not worked out too bad for me in terms of injuries. If Alexander-Arnold is fit, I could definitely get an 11 out, and I've got 2 subs to use. One of which would probably be Fernandes, if he did come out. If I did decide to make just the 2 changes, and I was talking about Rafinha, but then you made a very good point, Will, about Brazil. I didn't quite realise the nature of the unsociable hours of that game, so maybe Rafinha isn't the one there. But there's still other options, and maybe Jota's a better option because if Brazil are playing at that time and Firmino's there as well, I would imagine that means he's less likely to play for Liverpool, even come off the bench, which means Jota might get more minutes.
Is Jota not injured as well?
Well, last time I checked, he wasn't.
I think you picked up something.
Broke that one at me.
I think he had to withdraw from training, but there's a question mark over it. He might be back, might not.
Excellent.
Just what you needed.
Okay, well, that narrows the options even more. Might be time for Damari to come in at last. Who knows? No, in all seriousness, I had hoped to bring Lukaku in, but he's got that little triangle by him, so I'll have to look into that one. I'm tempted to play the wild card, but I'm trying to evaluate whether I basically wanted to play the wild card in game week 8 the whole way along, so it kind of makes sense to play it now. But the way that the current form books are, and I've actually got some informed players in the team with Tony, Jimenez, Salah, it's not too bad. I would like to get a couple of Chelsea bodies in, and Cancelo is the big one I'd love to get in. So I feel like it might be wildcard time, but I just don't want to. At the same time, there's something telling me don't play it. And my gut instinct has been all right so far this season. It's the same gut instinct that took me down the pub last week before the deadline. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I don't think, if you had to pin me to it now, I'm not playing the wild card and I'm using the 2 free transfers. And then we'll go from there. And if we do use the 2 free transfers, I think Fernandes comes out. I think Man United are in trouble, by the way. Now that Varane's injured, it gives me great satisfaction to declare I think Man United are in trouble away at Leicester. We'll see what happens there.
There won't be many clean sheets in that game. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think you're right. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be playing the wild card, and I think I'm going to try and bring in a couple of Chelsea bodies.
Yeah, definitely makes sense, especially because you've got those 2 transfers there. So you accidentally missed the previous one. But you say that about luck, but you're above both of us, so there's got to be some luck that's going into these decisions. It's not all about.
I think it's had a good start. Ben Rama was a decent pick at the start, and the differential pick wasn't really, I don't know, really it was differential against the rest of the league. And then, it's just fallen into place over the last couple of weeks. Lukaku blanking last week was super fortunate for me, because if he'd have scored, I'd have lost out big time. With a lot of people bringing him in and captaining him. And there's that risk again this week. If Lukaku's fit, and I don't end up going with Lukaku, and people get the injury news that he's going to play, and then they captain him, he could be the one. But who knows? Maybe Timo makes an appearance. Maybe we back the Werner. I don't know. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, if we just give an update on kind of some of the players we've just said as well, so we've got it on the pod. So, like Rafinha, like I was saying to Sam, I think yesterday. So Rafinha's got a match Friday morning at 1:30 a.m. and then Leeds have got a fixture on Saturday at 3 p.m. So it gives you roughly 36 hours difference between the games. Bearing in mind he's also got to travel back from Brazil, South America. Can't remember if it was an away fixture or not, but realistically, I can't see him playing there. You could make a point if he's on the bench, maybe, for Brazil, but I just can't see them risking him in that game. I think Sam said as well that Rafinha's their best player at the minute and probably the only fit one. So I'd say, would you want to even risk him in that game and just throw him on the bench? He might get 30 minutes at the end, but I'm very doubtful that Rafinha's going to get 90 minutes, especially. So I think Lukaku and Rudiger both got a flag at the minute. From what I've seen, they're very much precautionary measures, especially Lukaku, because Belgium were playing in the Nations League. They got knocked out in the semi-finals, so they kind of decided we don't need Lukaku for a first place playoff. We're not too fussed about that, so they kind of released him with kind of muscle soreness, they called it. And it's very similar with Rudiger from what I've heard as well. So I think there's a lot of doubts out there, but some of them we need to keep an eye on the press conferences for as well. Yeah, you mentioned Trent. I saw a quote today that Trent is back pretty much fully fit and he's fine to go for Watford. So that's one I was hoping for as well. So that's the latest updates I've seen on a few of those. But just keep an eye on the press conferences as well, especially because we've had this 2-week break. It could be anything that comes up, especially because teams are also playing tonight and maybe a few tomorrow, or even Rafinha on Friday morning, which is a ridiculous turnaround. But that gives you a bit of an update on them. And we mentioned Jota as well, that's got a flag as well. Not 100% sure what that is, kind of what Charlie mentioned. So we've got Charlie, who's full on wildcard. Sam's on the fence. And I think I'm full on not wildcarding. So we've got a good mix there. I think kind of similar to what you said, Sam, that there's changes I want to make, but I'm like, are the changes wildcard worthy? There's probably like 4 or 5 changes I could make, but the kind of luxury ones, and I don't think I need to make them.
I think it's a little bit different for me having those 2 free transfers. Like if you've kept them, you got to use them really to get the value out of them. But I would be like absolutely nailed on not playing the wild card this week if Mason Greenwood was in slightly better form. Like if he'd scored got a couple of extra returns from his last few games, because I could then, with confidence, whip Bruno out, and then just sort of go from there, really, and bring in Lukaku and go for someone else. But I think for sure I'm going to have to use the transfer. It's just a case of who comes out, who comes in. I really don't like Shaw anymore as a defensive option. I think Man United are going to concede too many goals over the next few weeks, and they haven't exactly looked great at the back over the start of the season. I'd really like, if I am going to do this and then play the wildcard next week, then it would be a good opportunity to maybe use those 2 transfers to bring in Brighton, because they're away at Norwich, who are now the new relegation fodder if they weren't already. So yeah, maybe Mope. I don't know. It might be an outside shout, and will probably be a differential. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of very much in the same boat. I've got Shaw and Greenwood as well, but I think you've got Bruno, haven't you, that you've talked about getting out. I think definitely the Man United assets, get out of them as you can. I don't mind Greenwood for this week, because you need to think everyone's been away on internationals. Greenwood hasn't travelled anyway. He's been at training the whole time. So I quite like him for the Leicester fixture. After that, I wouldn't really be recommending him to anyone until we get later on in the season. So I'm not too worried about Greenwood for this fixture, but he's one in the next 2 or 3 weeks that is kind of a need-to-go player, along with Shaw that you mentioned. So I had one free transfer. I've already made my free transfer. I think I literally made it the day after the deadline, which is Bertrand, which he got COVID early on in the season, so never turned out to be a good pick, to Cancelo, which was kind of a no-brainer for me to catch the price rise as well. So I've got one City defender in there, which is the ideal for now. No Chelsea in there in defence, but I've got Lukaku, so I'm kind of halfway between where I want to be, but not fully there, like where Charlie can get on the wild card. But
for those who are wildcarding, sorry, just before we jump onto Charlie's wildcard, an absolute underrepresented pick for the whole season that we spoke about as our under 10. I think Charlie mentioned it a couple of times in their under 10% ownership, that really could be one to consider now, is wearing a Man City shirt, and that's De Bruyne, because he was quality against Liverpool. He just had that extra time on the ball. City really missed that little bit of composure, and you could just see the increased attacking threat. Foden, Grealish, Jesus, just because De Bruyne was on the pitch, and you had a little bit less responsibility shouldered from people like Bernardo. And I think De Bruyne propped up with a goal, but he's certainly going to be getting back in amongst the assists, so that might be one to keep an eye out for as well.
Yeah, I think definitely. I saw him in the Belgian game as well, in the Nations League, and he looked pretty sharp in there. I think he settled both of the goals in that game as well. So he looks like he's getting back to fitness. I think the only issue with De Bruyne is obviously the price, because you're going to have to make sacrifices elsewhere. So I feel there's a lot of people mentioning Foden as a cheaper alternative, but it's the pep roulette that you're kind of putting yourself in for. You could even argue with some of the defenders, but I think, especially on a wildcard, there's a few risks you can take. As long as you've got like a strong bench, you could put Foden in there. He might not play every game, but if you've got like Livramento coming off the bench, it's not the worst option. So you've got to have a few risks in there, otherwise it's no fun, is it? So I think we'll probably base this around some of Charlie's starting comments. So, I've got a few questions about if we was on a wildcard, what we would do. So I'll aim the first one at you to start with, Charlie. So based on the quiz we was doing, I think a big topic in defence is how many City and Chelsea defenders to go for. Like, would you be going for one of each, doubling up on one, or double up on both? What are you currently eyeing up doing?
So I've kind of got a definite list, and like some that are possible. And at the moment, I've definitely got Cancelo, and I've definitely got one Chelsea defender. Whether that's Rudiger or I don't think James is close to being back necessarily, but if he is, then I'd maybe look at him. The double up is crossing my mind. I think it's a little bit easier maybe to go for the Man City double up, just because I know I'm definitely going to bring Lukaku in, potentially Mount as well is possibility. Whereas I can't see myself tripling up using double attacking Man City, so I know I'm free to just go double up on their defense. And obviously, I also what plays into that is I'm happy with Diaz as well as like an assured pick. So absolutely having one of both, and I'm toying with the idea of potentially getting like a Diaz as a double up.
Yeah, I think I'll back up what you said. I prefer the City defence to Chelsea, in my personal opinion. So like, I had the chance to bring in one with my free transfer, and I went to Cancelo. So Cancelo's got that kind of attacking intent as well, but I think Cancelo, I think I'll be going with the same kind of logic as you are. I'd have Cancelo and then a Chelsea defender as my base. I think I'd be very tempted to do what you've said with a Diaz and Cancelo double up. I think I'd even be
the other thing on that though is also because I'm definitely having Trent as well, because like you said, I saw the same thing. He seems to be fine and back, which then means if you're going to do the double up, that means you're switching to a 4 at the back. You can't really well, I suppose you could leave one of the double up on the bench if you wanted to, but that's money that you're kind of wasting if you do. So that effectively means you're either playing probably a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3. So I think it also kind of hinges on what else you're doing in the midfield and attack and how you're using those funds as to whether you've got the flexibility to have that and kind of how you want to set up your team. So I think it's probably going to be one of the later decisions I make on my wildcard based on what else I set up and what I like with the midfield and strikers.
Yeah, I don't think the 4 at the back's a bad thing to be going for, because there is a lot of, kind of expensive defenders that can do well, and then you've got a lot of cheap options in midfield that you can like get a few 6 million midfielders and you can rotate them based on the fixtures. But rather than like a Chelsea or Man City defender that you can probably play most weeks. So I think it's a viable strategy to go for the change of formation. I know a lot of people like the 3-5-2 or the 3-4-3. But definitely I've seen a lot of drafts where they're going big at the back, shall we say. And
I think the other reason for that as well is the number of options we've got in midfield and attack now compared to the number of actual viable options in defence. Like you say, it's in terms of defence, the main options you've either got, like these big players that we're talking about, like the Chelsea, City, and Trent, or you've got Livramento, and then that's really it. You've got some value picks, maybe like Ben White or a couple like that, but there's not really anyone that I'd be confident enough, even on a rotation basis, which is kind of what has led me to even just having those three, having Trent, Cancelo, and a Chelsea defender is still going big in defence because you're spending a lot of money in there. But yeah, like I said, it's more to do with, I think, the possibilities you've got in midfield and attack that actually allows you to do that at sort of cheaper price ranges. There's good value in those positions, so I think that kind of helps either just have those strong 3 defenders or even 4.
Yeah, I think that Trent news helps you out quite a bit, doesn't it? Because if you thought he was going to miss his next fixture, I think a lot of people would have gone without him for a few more weeks. Because it's not the easiest run. I think they've got a good fixture and a bad fixture is kind of how their run goes. But you can say that Liverpool can easily do well in their more difficult fixtures at the same time. So I think like the Man City defenders it's quite obvious. Like Cancelo and Diaz are probably the best options. If you was ranking the top 3 Chelsea defenders that you would pick, who would you be going for, Charlie?
So assuming they're all fit, I would probably put James top. The reason why, I think Rudiger's the most assured of starts out of the ones that I'd want to pick. I think technically Azpilicueta would be the most assured of starts, but because he's that higher price bracket, I wouldn't go on him. I think I just like that upside of James that little bit more over Rudiger because obviously the attacking threat. The issue is obviously his injury. I don't actually know what the latest is on that, so that's something I'm going to have to consider and also look at any press conferences and stuff going into the weekend. So I think I would rank James at top, and I think even there are going to be situations where Azpilicueta plays right wing back and James either plays right centre back or doesn't start, which can be a bit of an issue. But that's what the likes of Livramento on the bench is for. And even if he doesn't, Livramento doesn't come in and James does come off the bench, it's usually because they're looking for a goal because they want a more direct attacking fullback, and that's actually not a bad thing because I seem to remember that happening last year where I had him. He didn't start and then came on at 45 minutes or something when they needed a goal, and he's got I think 2 assists or 1 assist or something. So I think there's enough upside for me that I would rank James up top. I would then put Rudiger because of the surety of starts, and he has had some good chances in the box as well from corners. And then the third is a bit of I don't know who I'd go for really. I think there's obviously the likes of Alonso, but Chilwell's obviously just come back in, and I think that was actually off the back of a quite poor Alonso performance the week before. So I'd be too worried about the rotation between those two. I think there's a much closer competition between those two than on the right side. So I guess third, I'd probably put someone like Azpilicueta or maybe Thiago Silva. But yeah, in all honesty, I wouldn't pick either of them.
Yeah, I think I saw that James isn't that far away from fitness, so it's likely he'll be back within the next few weeks. Also, it depends on the match time they can give him and how quickly he gets back to match fitness, really. So it's probably going to be an option in the next few weeks, but not straight away, probably while you're on your wildcard. So what do you think from that point of view then, Sam? If you were going for Chelsea defence, who would you be going for to start with? Or if you were ranking them kind of how we've done it with Charlie?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the left-back situation is too murky to call, really. It looked like Alonso had it nailed on at the start of the season, then Chilwell's come in and done pretty well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Chilwell start this week, but I don't know if he's guaranteed to start going forward. If Rudiger's fit, he's probably the one you want to go for. An interesting one and like a decent differential could be Chalobah, if you wanted to look at that as an option. And then going from there, I feel like Rudiger's probably the only one that's like an absolute, if fit, dead cert to play. But yeah, I wouldn't be overlooking Chalobah. I don't think he seems like decent value, and may well play considering the amount of Chelsea defenders that have been out or not out, but involved in the international break. It might not be a bad pick.
Yeah, I feel like I'd make a defender pick that's a bit out there. So if I was on a wildcard, I'd be very tempted to go Trent, Cancelo, Azpilicueta, because I think Azpilicueta is as nailed as Rudiger, and he's got that slightly more attacking potential that he could play right wing back, as we saw in the last fixture, until James is back. So I would be wanting those three, and then I'd be very tempted to just throw in a fourth defender of probably Chilwell, because you've got such an upside, and if he doesn't play, I've already got that three defenders that are always going to play, and I've also got Livramento on the bench. I feel like that's kind of the risk you can take on a wild card. Depends if you want to play that risk, but I feel like if you can make those savings in midfield or those cheap options, it gives you the option to get a huge upside. Obviously, Chilwell's probably not going to play every week, but you just playing fun, aren't you? Like fighting fire with fire. But that's for you guys to decide. If you want to be that risk averse, I'll go for it. So we've kind of touched on the midfielders. So I think to allow for big in defence, maybe another premium in there like a KDB, we're going to be having to look at possible cheap midfielders that would get in there around like the 6 million, even cheaper than 6 million. Are there any standout options you're looking at the minute, Charlie?
So none of them that are nailed in my team. The only midfielder nailed in my team is Salah. He's not going anywhere probably the whole season. In terms of the cheaper ones, again, it's going to be about what comes out in press conferences and stuff as to whether or not Rafinha stays there. I do still like the look of their fixtures. So even if he were to miss this first one, I would probably consider leaving him on the bench. And obviously the benefit of wildcarding and also how I'm aiming to set up this wildcard is I'm going to have 15 players that play, or maybe 14, depending on the goalkeeper. So I would have the flexibility if needed to leave Rafinha on the bench for this first week. So I think he's going to be the standout one at that price. Obviously, it just depends on whether he plays. Obviously, the other options are kind of people that we've talked about, the likes of Mbeumo, potentially taking a punt on Smith Rowe or Saka. You know, there's people like Zaha or Conor Gallagher as well, if you want to go the Palace route. Some of the other ones which could be an outside shout, but their time's probably gone a little bit now, is maybe some of the, like we've talked about the Everton players quite a bit. They've got a couple of good games, but then it gets a lot harder, so they wouldn't necessarily be long-term picks. But yeah, we've spoken about them before, the likes of Doucouré, Demarai Gray, etc. Townsend after his Ronaldo celebration.
Nearly fell over, you mean?
But yeah, I don't think there's many that are sort of. There's not anyone that's screaming out other than Rafinha to me that I have to include them. I mentioned earlier that I'm considering Mount. I don't know whether it's just sort of confirmation bias of me just reinforcing this to myself, but I just feel like when he's fully fit, he seems to play for Chelsea, regardless of who the manager is. He's someone that a lot of people talked about how Lampard really loved him and whatever, but even then, when the manager changed and Tuchel comes in, he still plays Mount when fit. And he's just one of those that you feel like he's in that right sort of price bracket for just ticking over, and that's what he does usually when he plays. So he's someone that's in my consideration just because of how good their fixtures are. So I think he might go into my team for that period more as a kind of placeholder for that time to allow me to switch to someone around that bracket, maybe a Man City player as well in that same sort of range. But yeah, I feel like there's quite a few differential options, but no one like absolutely screaming that you have to have them in your team. I think you kind of just kind of look at the ones you like in their fixtures and then just go for them. And there's not really a wrong answer out of that sort of select pool of players because there's not one that's massively on top of any of the others.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like you need to manage your expectation when you're at that price as well. They're not going to haul every week. You just need to catch it when they do haul. So it can be quite difficult to get it at the right time. What you said about Mount as well, I saw Tuchel's comments previously as well that he likes the relationship that Mount and Lukaku have. So I agree with your point on Mount that he is quite likely, when fit, to be in that starting lineup. But then I have seen, like when Kovacic has been playing recently, he's been playing a bit more forward, like trying to support in attack as well. So I was looking at Kovacic and like 5.2 million, and he's like the ultimate casual pick, and I'm like, don't even think of going near him. But he has been playing a bit further forward, but now Kante's back as well. I don't think you should ever be going there, so I do like that Mount pick as well. Is there anyone stand out in that kind of price range for you, Sam, that you'd kind of what Charlie's been saying, there's no one he'd be nailed on for? Is there anyone that stands out for you?
Midfielder wise?
Yeah, kind of around that like 6 million mark or
Just
higher or
just
below.
Chelsea or like generally?
In generally, not just Chelsea.
Okay. I mean, I mean, it's hard to overlook Doucouré. He's had an unbelievable start to the season. He's racked up the points beyond reason, but obviously probably a better option. Everton haven't exactly got the greatest run of fixtures coming up, and probably better options available. Townsend and Gray, and I know you picked them up as pretty early on in the season as good tips, but particularly Townsend has kicked on a little bit. Seems like a decent option in and around there. Gallagher at 5.7 has probably got a decent run of fixtures for Palace coming up around, I think it's game week 11. Palace go on like a decent run, almost the whole way through to like 20, so maybe he's not a bad option.
Could you imagine if I actually listened to my own tips? I might actually be doing quite well.
Yeah, imagine. But no, there's not like a crazy variety of option at the minute. I think you just have to sort of bide your time. I really like what Charlie was suggesting as Mount as a placeholder. Just gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of money. If you want to downgrade to someone like a Townsend or a Gallagher, or even like a Saka or someone when there's a decent run of fixtures coming in for one of those teams, then you can do. So it's not a bad idea at all, really.
Yeah, I think the Umbuemo is the main one that sticks out for me. It's just because when you get past you need to look past the next fixture where you're playing Chelsea, and then that run afterwards is quite nice, especially the 10, 11, 12. And yeah. I think Charlie mentioned it before that he's playing like a striker, even though he's down as a midfielder. So he's got a good potential there. I think I quite like Gallagher, but he's kind of slightly off the boil, but he's got a decent run coming up as well. So I think they're the two standout ones for me. I kind of want a bit more input from Charlie on his Arsenal boys, if he would be going for a Smith Rowe or a Saka. Would you be avoiding them entirely, Charlie?
It's really tough. I just think there's too much of a lack of consistency.
Yeah.
The thing is, they are only the price that they are. So Smith Rowe is whatever 5 6.5 or somewhere around that bracket, and Saka's like 6.3 or something. So that kind of comes with that price bracket, but I just wouldn't feel confident enough in them getting points week in, week out, or even every other week that would tempt me. I think I'd be more confident of us getting clean sheets in or being able to predict clean sheets than being able to predict goals for those two, or goal contributions anyway. If I had to choose between the two of them, I think I would still go Saka. I think he just offers that more threat between the two, enough to justify the price difference. That being said, Smith Rowe did make a very good run in the England under-21. That's the one thing I did see actually of the international break was I think it was the under-21, England under-21s. He made a really good run and scored a goal. But yeah, I think I haven't considered them yet for my wildcard really, and I don't think I will. At best, I'd probably be considering Ben White, but beyond that, I don't think I'd go down the Arsenal route.
So you need the Arsenal fan to advise on Arsenal.
Do you consider bringing in James Ward-Prowse after his suspension's finished?
Nailed on.
I say Southampton haven't got the worst run, to be fair, but Jamie's going to miss
He's
half
suspended,
of it.
isn't he? Yeah.
He's going to miss half of it, though. So I think we've kind of covered. Is there anyone like other standout picks in midfield that particularly Charlie you've been looking at that we've not touched on? Is there anyone like more expensive? I feel like there's a big gap kind of between the 7 to 9 million where there's not a lot of options apart from like Mount. Is there anything else you've been looking at in that range?
Yeah, I mean, in that range, I guess you've got the Man City midfield that you're playing with. So it's whether you feel confident enough in them. I think if I was going to go that way, it probably would be one of. Well, I feel like there's enough that's putting me off Torres to go down that route, despite how well he seems to be playing. Like for Spain, I think he did well, and I heard, and obviously at the beginning of the season he did quite well, but he seems to have just dropped off the map completely since, which Pep has a habit of doing to some players like Mahrez. He does quite often. He just drops him off for no obvious reason. So I think it would only be Grealish or Foden for me. I do like the idea of KDB as a differential pick, but the problem for me is that I'm definitely going Salah and Lukaku, assuming Lukaku's fine to play, which basically shuts the door to me. Especially because I'm also going with those big defenders. That kind of shuts the door off for KDB for me, and I just prefer Salah's going nowhere, and I prefer Lukaku to KDB personally, whilst I sort of double up on the City defence. So I guess the only other one that could potentially be in the mix if you wanted to try and stretch your funds to that would be Son. The only reason I've briefly thought about it is because Spurs have a good run from game week 12, where they play Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, Norwich, Brighton, Leicester. And actually the run of fixtures, whilst they don't look immediately amazing in the next 4 weeks, so they've got Newcastle, West Ham, Man United, Everton. So Newcastle, you'd expect them to do well in. West Ham, Man United, Everton sound like they could be difficult games, but actually defensively those teams aren't great. So that's actually something I think Son could do well in which case he would actually potentially start getting transfers in and a price rise before that good run of fixtures. So it has crossed my mind a strategy of trying to see if I could get him in the team now and just try and hop on a bit early before the price rises and a good run in a few weeks. But I think it's probably just going to come down to not being able to afford him based on what the rest of my team will look like. So it would be a bit of a luxury having him in at the price he is when I'm probably likely to be captaining either one of Salah or maybe a Man City player in between. So I think it's worth a shout, and that's definitely a strategy you could go down. But I think there's sort of more value elsewhere.
Yeah, I forgot about Son because they've got Newcastle, haven't they, this game week as well, which is a decent fixture. Well, they could have a bit of a bounce back effect Newcastle because of the takeover, so I don't think it's as appealing as it first was. And Son's been on international duty, but I'd add up that run that you've mentioned later on with a possible Lukaku to Kane switch if Kane decides to hit a barn door between now and then.
Yeah, that for me, I've Son or nothing for me on Spurs. I wouldn't go near Kane. I think even if he scored maybe a goal a game between now and then, I still don't think I'd even consider him. something just completely seems off for me.
Yeah, it needs to show me something in like 4 or 5 games before it to consider he's getting him back in. He needs to get back to that form he was before, because like the previous seasons, you always knew he could, in those easier games, he could easily bag a hat trick without really thinking about it. But that's one to wait and see a few weeks down the line. Yeah, got to get through wildcards and everything before we get to that point. Right, so now we just move on to strikers and go back to you, Sam. If you were picking strikers for a wildcard, is there any particular ones that stand out? I think we're all going to say Lukaku, but is there any like cheaper strikers you'd be wanting to go for?
Yeah, well, I think Charlie actually said a really good one earlier, which is kind of starting to appear on a few radars in Huang Wolves, just because it's interesting. Because do we know if this is just a phase where he's come in, hit the ground running, he's absolutely smashing it? He's already up to over 4% ownership, which is up a lot in a fortnight. Although still relatively low in the grand scheme of things, but he's really not that far off Jimenez levels of ownership, and it's unsurprising really, considering he's been banging in the goals. The one for me that really sticks out as great value at the moment is Tony. I know we've been talking about Mbuemo, but obviously Tony being on penalties, or still as far as I know he's on penalties. I think he's a really good option. If you haven't already got him in, then at 6.3 now. That's not a bad shout. I think it might be the time to move away from Antonio. Other than those two, Tony and Huang, there's not a lot that really excite me in terms of potential options other than Lukaku, obviously. But like I said a little bit earlier, then Mopé might not be a bad shout this week at Norwich. I don't know if he's necessarily a sustainable wildcard pick, but if you're just looking to make transfers for this week, or maybe looking to have the wild card next week, then Mopé might not be a bad shout for this week.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions that Sam kind of gave me an answer to there about Antonio, because I don't think he's particularly essential to have in the team. I feel like there's better options at this point in time, but you're losing the value by taking him out. Is he currently in your plans, Charlie, or are you going elsewhere?
So yes and no. He's kind of in for the moment, but he will be the make way if I need to get some funds from somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I think, like you said, it's not essential to have him in the team. I think the fixture run's tough, but like I said on the previous pod, I don't think there's any game really, bar against maybe Liverpool or not even Liverpool, maybe Man City and Chelsea, that he wouldn't feel confident potentially getting a goal in. So for that reason, I don't think it's a bad move necessarily to keep him in. But yeah, I think for me, it's just going to come down to what other players I need in my team, and if I need to get some value, because the price he is, there are a lot of options going cheaper. Sam's obviously covered off a lot of them there. The other one I'm considering is Adam Armstrong at Southampton because of their run. Yeah, so it's quite possible that he does swap for Adam Armstrong if I need that extra bit of money just to go into the midfield or defence. I did actually look at the Malpai shout as well, because as well as that Norwich game, there is actually you have to bench him basically for the following two, which is Man City and Liverpool. But then actually they don't have too bad a run. So Newcastle, Villa, Leeds, West Ham, Southampton, Tottenham, Wolves. That's actually not too bad for a player of his price. He'd probably be getting a reasonable total for the price you're paying, potentially. So yeah, not a bad shout. But I think of those we've talked about, it would probably be one of Huang or Adam Armstrong that would go down the sort of cheaper route. And so either them as a second striker if I'm just playing two up top, or as a third striker if I'm playing three and potentially keeping Antonio in. But yeah, like I say, it all kind of hinges on the rest of my team, really. That's not a position I feel strongly enough about, other than Lukaku in the front three, that I need to make a decision based on the players themselves. It would more be based on what the rest of my team's looking like.
Yeah, I think like Morpie is like very streaky, and he just gets him in random games. So I'm just looking at when he's actually scored. Like he's scored against a few decent teams as well. Crystal Palace, I think it was Everton who was the other team he'd scored against. So he can score against kind of the mid-table sides as well. Obviously, you said you might want to bench him against the bigger sides, but I think when you're around that level, they can kind of score against anyone in any given week, and it's difficult to pick the actual week they're going to score. I think definitely I want a bit more on Juan. I want to see him for another few weeks to see if he's getting 60 minutes, 90 minutes, even just coming off a 30. I just want a bit more information on him, I think. And then on Antonio, I think Antonio probably would have been gone in my team if he'd played for Jamaica, but he didn't travel for international duty at all. So that gives me slightly more confidence that his hamstring's not going to ping in the next month or so. So I feel a bit more comfort after I saw he hadn't been called up. I'm quite interested that you didn't mention Tony in those discussions as well on yours, Charlie, that you're not thinking of a Tony or Mbeumo at the minute.
I think it's just because comparing the two, I feel like Mbeumo offers better value, but they're both so cheap anyway that it's not necessarily a bad decision going either one. But I just because I prefer the idea that, or the idea that my player is going to be the one that's running on beyond the other. So in most of their attacks, it tends to be Tony dropping a little bit deeper and Mbeumo running on. So like we saw in the goal that he scored against West Ham, it was where I think Brentford, Tony had the shot, Fabianski parried it, and then Mbeumo was following up and scored. And I think that's the kind of thing that we tend to see with how they play. And I just prefer that idea of him running on and being the one that's a bit further forward. And then there's just this thing about, he's a midfielder, he's getting that extra point for the goal, and he's getting clean sheet points if they come, which they don't tend to for Brentford. So I think that is enough to make me consider him over Tony, but I don't think either of them are a bad shout.
I think the strikers, like when I look at my team at the minute, that's one of the positions I look at and I'm like, I don't even need to wildcard any of these players out because I've got Lukaku, Antonio, and Tony, and I'm like, they can easily get me through a few weeks. If I want to make a transfer Antonio, I can, but Tony and Lukaku are going to be there for a good 5+ game week, so I've got no worries there. So, like we've said, Charlie's definitely wildcarding. Sam, there's a slight devil inside him that wants to, but I'm definitely...
Probably not, to be honest. Yeah, it's probably not.
But yeah, I'm definitely not. Unless something like happens miraculously in a few days where like 3 or 4 players go down with COVID or something, it's not going to be happening for me. So for probably just rounding up things, just looking at the fixtures going forward for this next week, if we probably start with the standout captaincy choices. If I put a certain Egyptian's name out there, I feel like we won't go much further than that for the captaincy debate. Are you going any further than Salah for your captain, Sam?
No, Salah will be my captain for this week. I think there's other couple of notable options, although not specific players as such. If you can predict the Pep roulette, it may be not a bad idea to go for a Man City defender, or maybe even Edison, as crazy as it sounds, at home against Burnley, just because it feels like that's a nailed-on clean sheet. But then again, you never know. I wouldn't touch the Man United Leicester game. I probably wouldn't touch the Villa Wolves game. Norwich Brighton. I mean, you could take a punt on a Brighton player if you've got one in, but I wouldn't touch the Southampton game. Brentford Chelsea. I mean, you could maybe look at Lukaku. He might well score, but Brentford are no mugs at home, as Liverpool found out last week. And it's just got difficult games the whole way down. It wouldn't be crazy to maybe look at someone like an Aubameyang against Palace, I guess, on Monday Night Football. But then again, it is Arsenal, so who knows? I think, Salah for me. And if you can predict something somewhere else, you never know. There might be some value to be found there, but I think it'll be the Egyptian, my end.
It's a bad week when Aubameyang's actually in the question as a captain.
Yeah.
Would you be similar, Charlie, thinking with Salah?
Yeah, it's not even a question for me. I think also the fact that I'm wildcarding feels like even more of a reason to go Salah captain, just because I don't feel like I need to play too differential. Just because the fact I'm wildcarding in itself is a bit of a differential to other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I seem to have a memory of him scoring 3 potentially, or maybe even 4 against Watford in previous seasons, or getting 4 attacking returns maybe in a couple of seasons ago or something. But yeah, I can't see a reason not to go Salah. I think Man City Burnley the only other standout game for me really. That would potentially sway me away, but again, it's just predicting who starts. I don't mind that potential Cancelo shout. He may well just end up being my vice captain, but yeah, I can't see a reason not to go Salah.
I've seen a few crazy wildcards where they've put 3 Man City midfielders in there just because surely one of them, at least one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them might play, which is a different way to go for it because they're using a logic that they expect City to win like 5-0. So if you catch a midfielder, they're likely to get a return in some form, even though it's only 1. But different strategy to do there. And I think on that Brentford Chelsea one as well, I'm very much hoping for a similar game to the Liverpool game where there's goals. So it wipes out all the wildcarders, Chelsea clean sheets. Ivan Toney scores a few, and then Lukaku gets a few at the same time. So we can live in hope for that one. But we'll see how that pans out. I think that just gives a bit of a good overview on those fixtures as well. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on?
No, sounds good.
I think so, mate.
Yeah, sounds good then. So good luck with your wildcard, Charlie. Well, not too much good luck because I don't want you to go too far ahead. But I think you need it to catch up with Sam. And Sam, make sure to actually do your team before the deadline this time.
Although from last
yeah. Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, we should try that throughout the season at different game weeks and see what the result is. Do a bit of an experiment.
I wouldn't recommend it.
And it comes up once.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you guys again. And we will be back again next week because there's no international break, thank God. So we will see you all again on the next one. Have a good evening.